This section consists of slope-intercept form, which uses the formula y equals mx plus b. With that, we must understand that the variable, as we already know, m, represents the slope, and the variable b represents what's called the y-intercept. I will abbreviate y-intercept. Now, the y-intercept is the spot on the coordinate plane where your line touches the y-axis. For instance, in the graph shown below, the y-intercept would be the spot where the line touches, or you could say crosses at the same time, crosses the y-axis. Now, the y-axis is the axis that's vertical, the vertical axis. The x-axis is the axis that's horizontal. So in this case, we could simply say that our y-intercept, b, would equal -2. Now, if I wanted to find the slope also of this line, there are two things I could do. Number one, I could take the two coordinates that I see, and I could use the slope formula, which we learned in section 4.1. So I could take the 2 points that we have. The first point, the point that I see going from left to right, first is the point 0, -2, which also is the y-intercept. And then the other point we have is the point 2, 0. Well, I could use those and go ahead and label them x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. I could easily do that. And then use the slope formula. That is one way to find the slope of this line, that is. Or I could do something else, which would be to go from the first point I see from the left side and see how far I have to go up, what is the rise, and what is the run, to go from one point to the next. So I could go like this, count how many times up do I have to go to get to the location where the other point is. 1, 2. So I'd say my rise, I'm now on the same level as my other point, is 2. Well, let's find the run. How far over do we have to go? Because I went up, it's a +2. How far to the right would I go to get to this point? 1, 2. The run would be 2 as well. So 2 over 2 would be my slope. If I simplify that, it would actually be a slope of 1. That means for every time I go up once and to the right once, I will be at a spot on the line. For instance, I'm still on the line. Up one more and over again, I'm at the second point that we have on our line that we labeled. There are many points on a line, more than what's just shown. Now, another thing to think about in 4.2 is when you're dealing with what's called slope-intercept form, the equation y equals mx plus b. As long as you know that m represents your slope and b represents the y-intercept, m is always beside x, you can look at an equation. For instance, if we have a different equation here, and you can find the slope and the y-intercept. Y equals, let's say we have -3x plus 5. Well, in this situation, remember m is the number that's beside x, and the other number would be your y-intercept. So the slope, m, equals -3, or -3 over 1, means the same thing, And the y-intercept would be 5. Now, one last thing we must know, and that is this. Let's say that they give you an equation. The equation looks like this. Well, in this case, we would not be able to identify the y-intercept or the slope until y is by itself. You need to put your equation in y equals format. That's when you can identify the slope and the y-intercept. So my first step is I need to get this equation into y equals format. So I will subtract 10x from both sides, and that will give me 2y equals 4 minus 10x. If I like, I can switch the 4 and the 10x and switch their spots. Just make sure that you keep the negative sign in front of the 10. In front of the 10x, that is. Then, lastly, I will divide both sides by 2 to get y alone. Now remember, everything on the right side gets divided by 2. Do I have to write this twice? No. You can write the 2 once as one, and write this as one fraction if you like, but you just have to remember that you're dividing both things on the right side by 2. When we get finished dividing, you will end up with the equation. Well, let's break this down. The 2's will cancel out. Y will then be alone. I'll rewrite it on the right side here. Y equals, then 4 divided by 2 is going to equal 2. And then negative 10x divided by 2 is going to give you negative 5x. Your slope is negative 5 over 1, or negative 5, because that's the number that's beside x. And then your y-intercept would be 2. So in this situation, I could say b equals 2 and m equals negative 5 or negative 5 over 1. It means the same thing. So remember that rule. Y must be alone in order to identify the slope and y-intercept.